By the autumn of 1944, the final act of World War II was unfolding, yet victory remained staggeringly expensive in human lives. The imperative for the Allied command was to find a way to hasten the end, to achieve surrender without the bloody necessity of seizing every German city block by block. This urgency birthed a new, insidious front: psychological warfare, or PsyOp. The mandate to devise this campaign fell to the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, the United States pioneering intelligence agency. Their objective was not physical destruction, but the psychological demolition of the Reich's greatest remaining asset, the German will to fight. The operation was managed by the Morgenthau-Plan Group, MPG, in Rome. Here, sharp, unconventional minds, including William J. Casey, a high-ranking OSS operative who would later become a pivotal director of the CIA, recognized that the greatest vulnerability of the totalitarian Nazi state was its insistence on absolute control and efficiency. They planned to weaponize the regime's own bureaucracy against itself, setting the stage for Operation Cornflakes to unfold as a masterpiece of covert disruption. The logistical crucible for this audacious campaign was established deep within Rome, Italy. Following the city's liberation, the OSS swiftly secured a facility, known internally as the Black Propaganda Unit, which became a veritable forgery factory. This unit was an assembly of Europe's finest printers, engravers, and artists, tasked with a relentless pace of production. Rome offered distinct advantages: a secure operational environment far from immediate front-line threats, and crucial access to high-quality paper stocks and printing dyes essential for replicating sophisticated German materials. The unit's output was not crude leaflets, but highly polished documents of deception. They were mastering the minute details of the enemy's visual communication, from the typeface on an official notice to the specific color of ink used on a stamp, laying the absolutely essential foundation for the believability, and therefore the success, of the Cornflakes deception. The central, brilliant insight of Operation Cornflakes was a fundamental rule of propaganda: a lie is most effective when it is delivered by a trusted source. The OSS correctly identified the German civilians' ingrained trust in the Reichspost, German postal service. It was one of the last remaining, functional, and highly disciplined institutions in the crumbling Reich. The strategy was to bypass the heavy-handed Gestapo and Wehrmacht censorship entirely by ensuring the propaganda appeared to be domestic German correspondents that had simply been involved in an accident. The entire operation hinged on transforming the Reichspost from the regime's communication pillar into its unwitting accomplice. By meticulously mimicking every detail of authenticity, the OSS ensured that the German state would use its own ingrained sense of order and bureaucratic momentum to deliver the very messages designed to cause its psychological destruction. Achieving the necessary level of forgery required technical genius that bordered on artistry. The OSS recruited a diverse team of experts. While many of the names remain classified, the work was often credited to key OSS personnel like American artist Edmund Doyle, who was instrumental in designing the most provocative stamp concept. These master craftsmen faced immense pressure. They had to perfectly replicate the minute features of the German printing industry. This included analyzing and duplicating the specific chemical composition of ink, ensuring the subtle color variations matched official Reichspost palettes, and meticulously recreating the precise perforation count and gum adhesive used on stamp. The counterfeiting extended even to the paper, requiring careful sourcing to match the density, texture, and even the subtle, specific watermarks that might be found in legitimate German correspondence. The goal was not close enough, but absolute, verifiable replication. The first line of defense against interception was not the content, but the exterior, the envelope itself. The OSS counterfeiting operation had to master three critical external details: the paper stock, the postage stamps, and the cancellation marks, post-stempel. They sourced paper that matched the specific thickness and color common to German wartime mail. They created hundreds of different rubber stamps to imprint realistic-looking cancellations, ensuring that the postmarks corresponded to plausible German cities and were dated logically. This level of detail meant that the mail appeared to have passed through a genuine, multi-stage postal route. By ensuring the exterior was flawless, the OSS guaranteed the mail would be initially classified by busy postal workers as salvageable mail, the crucial classification needed for it to bypass censorship and be propelled toward its target destination. Among the trove of counterfeit materials, one item achieved a grim, lasting notoriety: the Hitler head propaganda stamp. The OSS targeted the standard 12-Pfennig definitive issue, a stamp omnipresent across the Third Reich, featuring the solemn profile of Adolf Hitler. In a masterstroke of miniature psychological warfare, OSS artists, including figures like Edmund Doyle, meticulously replaced Hitler's face with a chilling, stylized death head or skull. This skull stamp was not merely a defacement, it was a profound act of symbolic subversion, designed to forge a subconscious, visceral link between the Führer and the omnipresent reality of death that was consuming Germany. It was a daily, unsettling reminder of mortality and the war's accelerating toll, appearing innocuously on everyday mail. In a complementary effort to sow high-level paranoia, another stamp was created depicting Heinrich Himmler behind prison bars, implicitly suggesting internal betrayal and the inevitable fracturing of the Nazi leadership, planting seeds of doubt among even loyal citizens. The meticulousness of Operation Cornflakes extended far beyond visual replication. It delved into the realm of sensory psychological warfare. OSS chemists, operating under the premise that even subconscious sensory details could erode trust, developed a specific, bespoke adhesive for the backs of the fake Reichspost stamp. This glue, while functionally identical to official German adhesives, was intentionally formulated to leave a subtly unpleasant, acrid, or noticeably sickly sweet taste when moistened. The theory was insidious. This minute, consistent sensory deviation, an unsettling imperfection in an otherwise flawless, trusted postal ritual, would lodge a subliminal seed of suspicion in the minds of the German populace. By subtly altering the fundamental, reliable experience of a state service, the OSS aimed to subtly undermine confidence in the very stability and integrity of the German state itself, proving that in psychological warfare, no detail, however small, was too insignificant to be weaponized. The operational viability of Cornflakes hinged on precise, actionable intelligence and flawless logistical integration. The OSS identified the critical arteries of the German postal network: the Feldpost, military field mail, railway route. These were the high-volume lines specifically chosen for carrying mail from neutral countries like Switzerland, as well as occupied territories, into the heart of southern Germany. Intelligence operatives meticulously gathered data on train schedules, pinpointing the exact position of the mail wagons within the larger train convoys. This detailed reconnaissance was paramount. The goal was not merely to bomb a train, but to execute a highly specialized, surgical strike against the mail car itself, creating a specific, controlled form of disruption that would trigger the next, vital stage of the operation, based on predictable German bureaucratic responses. The successful execution of the infiltration relied entirely on the air superiority and pinpoint accuracy of the 15th Air Force, operating out of Allied bases in Italy. Their mission was fundamentally different from traditional strategic bombing. Pilots were given explicit, precise instructions to disable the targeted Reichspost car, not to obliterate the entire train or incinerate its content. The objective was to create a scene of chaos and destruction, scattering genuine mail from the damaged wagon across the railway line, but crucially, leaving enough intact for salvage. This controlled destruction was designed to produce the perfect crime scene, a plausible accident that would immediately necessitate the deployment of German cleanup and salvage crews, thereby setting the stage for the crucial next phase, the strategic introduction of the forged mail. Immediately following the precision strike by the 15th Air Force, the second aerial phase commenced. Special Allied planes, flying at low altitudes under the cover of darkness, would drop their precious cargo, tens of thousands of expertly forged letters and propaganda pieces, sealed within durable waterproof canvas bags. The method of delivery was meticulously planned to achieve absolute physical integration. The bags were scattered precisely among the wreckage of the bombed railway line, intermingling seamlessly with the genuine, slightly damaged mail. This blending of truth and deceit was the make-or-break moment. By appearing to have suffered the same fate as the legitimate Reichspost cargo, the forged mail was primed for the next, inevitable step, being deemed salvageable and legitimate by the German cleanup crews, thus securing its passage into the heart of the Third Reich's communication network. The entire audacious scheme of Operation Cornflakes pivoted on a deeply ingrained psychological truth about German society: its unwavering commitment to Ordnung und Pflicht, order and duty. The OSS genius lay in gambling that this ingrained sense of civic responsibility would override any immediate suspicion. When the Reichspost cleanup crews arrived at the scene of the bombed mail train, their mandate was clear: retrieve every single piece of salvageable mail. They were not forensic investigators. They were postal workers, driven by regulations to process and deliver. In the chaos and urgency of a bomb site, with genuine mail scattered and damaged, the perfectly crafted OSS forgeries, now convincingly soiled and mixed, were simply swept up, bundled, and, without passing through any centralized Gestapo inspection, were fed directly back into the domestic postal sorting network. The very efficiency of the German system became the unwitting logistical carrier of its own demise. The primary payload for Operation Cornflakes was a masterfully crafted, clandestine newspaper titled Das Neue Deutschland, the New Germany. This was no crude, morale-boosting leaflet plastered with Allied slogans. This was black propaganda at its most sophisticated and insidious. The newspaper was meticulously designed to mimic the aesthetic of an internal German publication, lending it instant credibility. Its messaging was surgically precise. It avoided overt anti-Nazi rhetoric, instead focusing on fabricating internal dissent within the Reich, spreading rumors of corruption and betrayal among the Nazi elite, and subtly but meticulously twisting official Wehrmacht casualty figures from the devastating Eastern Front. By presenting these doubts as internal truths, the OSS aimed to convince the average German that the state was not merely being defeated by external forces, but was collapsing from within, thus justifying passive resistance and internal disloyalty. To maximize the psychological penetration of their messages, the OSS engaged in a painstaking intelligence-gathering effort. The forged letters were not indiscriminately scattered. They were addressed to specific, verifiable German citizens at their actual residences. Lists of authentic names and addresses were meticulously compiled from various intelligence sources. Intercepted mail passing through neutral countries like Sweden and Switzerland, interrogation of captured prisoners of war, POWs, who revealed family details, and intelligence gleaned from refugees. This granular targeting guaranteed that the propaganda would arrive directly at the kitchen table, bypassing official censorship channels and forcing the recipient to confront the subversive information privately. This personalization amplified the shock and credibility, transforming abstract enemy propaganda into a seemingly concrete, internal threat. While Das Neue Deutschland served as the primary vehicle for political subversion, the envelopes often contained additional, smaller, and equally targeted propaganda leaflets. One recurring and highly effective theme was the Good Soldier leaflet, designed to directly encourage surrender among German troops and support passive resistance among civilians. These pieces focused not on grand political ideologies, but on the visceral realities of survival. They depicted the comparatively excellent treatment, abundant food, and safe conditions afforded to German prisoners of war, POWs, in Allied camps, contrasting this sharply with the grim reality of starvation, frostbite, and certain death facing those who continued to fight on the collapsing Eastern and Western fronts. This direct, survival-oriented message was a powerful psychological appeal to the weary, disillusioned soldier and their anxious families. Beyond the strategic targeting of southern Germany's population centers, the OSS expanded the geographic scope of Operation Cornflakes to include the vital industrial heartlands of the Reich. Regions like the Ruhr Valley, Saxony, and other key manufacturing zones became prime targets for mail drop. The objective here was to undermine the morale and productivity of the German workforce, the backbone of Hitler's war machine. Propaganda messages delivered to these regions highlighted factory production bottlenecks, exaggerated the loss of skilled workers to the front lines, and underscored the increasing futility of their labor as Allied bombs rained down. The goal was to demonstrate that even the sacred German industrial capacity was faltering, thereby eroding faith in the regime's ability to wage a prolonged war and fostering a sense of inevitable, total defeat. The pursuit of authenticity within the OSS Black Propaganda Unit bordered on obsession. To counter the possibility of a rigorous forensic examination by the Gestapo, the technical detail of the forgery extended even to the paper stock itself. OSS chemists and paper experts did not merely match the texture and color of German paper. In some high-security cases, they attempted to replicate the watermarks used by specific German paper mills. While logistically incredibly challenging and expensive, this effort was a critical safeguard. The presence of a genuine-looking watermark meant that even if the Gestapo intercepted the mail and conducted a microscopic inspection, the paper itself would appear to be of domestic German origin, eliminating a primary line of inquiry and guaranteeing the physical integrity of the deception. It was a costly testament to the OSS commitment to avoiding detection at all costs. In the final, desperate weeks of the war, as the fate of the Reich was sealed, the OSS pushed the operational and ethical boundaries of psychological warfare to their absolute limit. Recognizing the devastating psychological impact of military casualties, the Cornflakes network began distributing forged German death notices and casualty telegrams. These were cruelly specific, addressed to individual, real households, fabricating the battlefield death of a husband, son, or brother fighting on the collapsing fronts. While universally recognized as one of the most morally complex and unsettling acts of the war, the immediate, personalized shock of receiving a fabricated fatality notice was intended to shatter any remaining civilian faith in the war effort, amplifying the terror and accelerating the sense of total societal collapse in the final days of the Nazi regime. This was psychological warfare stripped bare, operating solely on the visceral mechanism of fear. Despite the sophistication of the counter-effort, German records and post-war interviews confirm a crucial institutional failure. The Operation Cornflakes mail was so technically flawless that it successfully circumvented large-scale detection. The sheer volume of genuine mail requiring urgent sorting, combined with the focus of Gestapo sensors on large, suspicious packets and foreign intercepts, created a crucial institutional blind spot. The Postal Service's ingrained focus on delivering the mail, a reflection of German bureaucratic order, prevented them from pausing to forensically analyze every piece of domestic-looking correspondence that had apparently survived a bombing. The deception succeeded because the OSS gambled, correctly, that the German system would prioritize process over paranoia. The Cornflakes infrastructure was occasionally employed for intelligence objectives beyond simple propaganda. In select cases, the highly secure channel was used to transmit sensitive information directly to Allied agents deep undercover within Germany. This was achieved using microdots, tiny photographic reductions of classified information, often hidden within the punctuation marks or period endings of the forged documents. If intercepted, the microdot provided a virtually undetectable channel for intelligence transmission. This capability underscored the multi-layered strategic importance of the operation, illustrating how the highly protected channel, created for psychological warfare, could simultaneously serve as a vital, concealed communication lifeline for the broader Allied intelligence effort. Operation Cornflakes stands as a profound, complex, and controversial case study in the history of psychological warfare. For 2 decades after the war's conclusion, the details, methods, and names of those involved remained highly classified by the U.S. government. When finally revealed, the operation showcased how American intelligence could weaponize one of the most trusted symbols of the state, the daily ritual of receiving mail, to achieve strategic military goals. The operation, forever memorialized by the iconic skull stamp, proved conclusively that in total war, the erosion of a nation's core psychological trust, delivered one inconspicuous envelope at a time, can be as strategically decisive as any physical bombardment, ultimately helping to accelerate the collapse of the Third Reich.